Chapter 1. Persuasion is an important life skill. Persuasion is all about making people see things from your perspective. We're all humans, and for very good reasons, we almost always see things from different, often conflicting, perspectives, hence the need for persuasion. When you think about it, you'll find that persuasion happens in our lives daily. We're either persuading others or being persuaded ourselves. Most of our daily interactions are persuasive. Convincing your boss about why you deserve a raise takes persuasion. Getting your kids to bed early is another form of persuasion. Convincing your spouse about why a vacation in Dubai is better than one in your home country when they don't like the idea of traveling takes persuasion, and on and on. If persuasion is such an important skill, why then do most people seem to fail at it? On a general note, we are better at persuasion when it involves friends and family because we know them inside out. We know the thing that makes them tick, and so we can tailor our words to strike them properly. Questions work best when persuading strangers because they help you find out more about the other person. How do effective communicators do it? Is there a magic formula for the art of persuasion? You bet. Persuasion is a skill, and there are underlying principles that every effective persuader is using consciously or subconsciously. You've applied many of these principles yourself at certain points. We all have. But the difference between an expert persuader and one that only lucks out once in a while is that the experts know the rule of the game. Lawyers are about the most persuasive people on earth because it's what they do every day. How do you feel about learning trade secrets from a former congressman and prosecutor? Sounds interesting? In this summary, you'll be learning the persuasion tactics Trey Gowdy learned and used in the course of his career as a lawyer and lawmaker. Let's proceed. Chapter 2. The most persuasive people are those who can be persuaded themselves. If you can't be persuaded, how do you expect to persuade others? There's a level of open-mindedness that makes persuasion possible, and all parties involved need to have this trait. Contrary to popular opinion, persuasion has little to do with convincing people to make 360-degree changes while you remain unchanged. It happens, but that's only the exception, not the norm. Persuasion usually ends in both parties reaching a common ground for mutual benefit. The mutual benefit part is particularly important. Let's imagine you're trying to get your teenager to return home early. Just telling him to come home early because you want him to might not work, but if you find a reason that resonates with him, then you'll find quick success. For example, if he has a test the next day, you could use that fact to push your point. He'd see the need for coming home early to rest well before the test, and in turn, you'll have peace of mind. It's a win-win situation. People are motivated when there is a potential benefit, so the next time you want to persuade someone, don't forget to show them the benefits early enough. Here's another example to illustrate how persuasion has to involve both parties. If you're trying to negotiate remote work, but your organization's policy is against it for productivity reasons, then you need to supply a good enough reason to convince your boss that working remotely will be in the company's favor. But no matter how convincing you may sound, your boss isn't likely to accept your proposal just like that. They may suggest a good compromise, and that's where your need to be persuadable comes into play. If you decide to stick to just your ideas, chances are you may never win your boss over. Being open to new suggestions and ideas will make your boss more likely to agree with you. In the end, you'll both find a favorable compromise. Chapter 3. Persuading without an end goal in mind is like traveling without a destination at heart. There are 3 vital things you need to sort out before you start persuading someone: your objective, the facts, and your approach. Your objective is your end goal. What is it that you want to achieve in the end? What do you regard as success or failure? Would a change in perspective be enough, or do you want them to take very specific actions? Have you failed if they leave saying they need time to consider your ideas? You have to know exactly what it is you want, because defining it will give structure to your efforts. Next, you need to know all the facts about the subject matter. If, for instance, you've been invited to address a group on the subject of taxation, you'll do well to do your due diligence. Research all you can about taxes and make sure you're separating the facts from your beliefs and emotions. The goal of persuasion is not getting people to align with your beliefs, but to point them to facts and allow them to make a decision. The problem with letting beliefs and emotions into your persuasion is that people will see through your words before considering your ideas. Once they see your bias, convincing them becomes incredibly difficult. After researching the facts, you need to determine your approach. How will you present the facts to your audience and lead them to the truth? People have different ideas for making this work, but nearly everyone seems to agree that you should start and end with your most powerful facts. So, here's what to do. Start with your best fact and keep the second best for the conclusion. Let the less powerful ones come in between.
Congratulations, you've hit a daily streak.
Chapter 4. Persuasion is almost impossible when you don't know anything about your audience. Think about the greatest persuaders. They all take time out to understand their audience before engaging them. Politicians study their citizens before drafting their campaign strategies. Marketers do it before releasing new campaigns. Even lawyers sometimes take months to study a case before appearing before the court. All these point to one fact: there is no substitute for understanding your audience. It's far too easy to study your audience when you have time to prepare for the event. But what happens if you suddenly find yourself in an informal persuasion situation without prior preparation? What do? Your options are indeed limited, but there's still something you can do. Employ the power of questions. Ask questions like, what do you think about the current tax law? Do you believe remote work is the future of work? I heard startup founders work their ass off in the early days. How did you survive those years? Questions like the ones above have just one motive: encourage the audience to talk more. People generally like talking more than they like listening, so you can't go wrong about asking open-ended questions. While your audience is speaking, take note of their beliefs and the emotions they protrude. All those will become effective tools in your persuasion arsenal. Did you know there is roughly one attorney per every 240 people in the U.S.? Chapter 5. Questions either make or mar conversations depending on use. Persuasion doesn't happen all at once. It's the result of a buildup that has been happening. Think of persuasion, in this case a change in perspectives, as a destination and the conversations as the pathway to that destination. Have you noticed that people are more likely to reach a consensus when they talk at length than when the conversation is short? It's because the more they talk, the more they create the building blocks that make persuasion possible. Smart persuaders know how to build conversations that point people to their ideas. They do this by leveraging the power of questions. The quality of your life depends largely on the quality of the questions you're asking. Ideally, there are two types of questions in the art of persuasion, only two: corroborative and contradictory questions. Corroborative questions are asked to further build up the conversation. They are used when you like the direction your audience is going and you'd like them to keep on talking. Examples include, "How did you become such a wonderful doctor?" "Why did you choose to become a career coach?" And so on. These questions are easy and your audience will love them. Corroborative questions target your audience's strengths and accomplishments, so they're easy for them to answer. Contradictory questions, on the other hand, are what you might want to call hardball questions. These questions challenge your audience's credibility, believability, and likability. They make your audience uncomfortable, so only ask them when you want exactly that effect. A good example of a contradictory question is spotting a lie, incomplete truth, or cover-up in your audience's conversation and asking them about it to put them on the spot. Conclusion. People sometimes confuse persuasion with debate, but the two are totally different things. As a matter of fact, most debaters are terrible at persuasion. Debate is a science, while persuasion is an art. With persuasion, you are restricted to an exact body of rules, while debating and ideal debates have judges, but persuasion is not like that. Except for the few exceptions, persuasion often involves just two parties with no one to judge between them. When debating, you depend solely on your ability to talk, while persuasion is dependent on your listening ability. Without listening to your audience, how else would you know their deep thoughts about the subject matter? To become successful in the art of persuasion, you have to change your focus from trying to completely win your audience over to making incremental progress. Having people change their mind about what they believe is rare, so if you gun for that alone, you are very likely to experience failure. However, if your focus is on reaching a mutually beneficial ground such that the conversation ends in a win-win, then you're guaranteed to see more success. Try this. Think about a situation in which you need to persuade someone. The person in question could be a spouse, friend, boss, or whomever. Next, come up with all the facts you can find about your audience and subject matter. Define the objective of your persuasion, and then tailor your approach in a way that appeals to your audience's uniqueness.